Hello there, my name is Michael. Today I'm going to show you what is a variable, how to assign a variable, and different things you can do with a variable, and the rules on how to create a variables. So let's go. A Python variable is a symbolic name that is a reference or a pointer to an object. Once an object is assigned to a variable, you can refer to the object by that name. Variables are nothing but reserved memories location to store values. This means that when you create a variable, you reserve some space in memory based on the data type of a variable. The interpreter allocates memory and decides what can be stored in the reserved memory. How to create a variable? We have our variable which is a and our value which is 5. We also have our variable here which is f, and we have our value which is John, and John is a string. 5 is an integer, and this equals to is our assignment. It's what we use to assign the value to the variable right here. So right on the print gives us the value. So if I put a here and I print it out, I'm going to get 5, and if I print this out, f, I'm going to get John. So if you see right here, we have a variable a and the value which is 7, and it is an integer data type, and we have a variable f, and we have the value mark which is a string data type. Then we print them out using the print function a, then print the second one out using the print function f. So run it. That's how it works. Variables do not need to be declared with any particular types and can even change types after they have been set. So we have an example here. So we have x, which is our variable, and we have 4, which is our value, and it's an integer. Now we use that same x again over here for a string, for a value which is Sally. This is our string, and this is our value which we're assigning to x. Now what's going to happen here is that because we're assigning to the same x, 4 is going to be erased, and our last value that we assigned to it will be printed out when we print using the print work function, and we're going to have Sally instead of 4 because it was override when we used it again for Sally. So if we look at right here, we have variable x which has 9 as a value and as battery here as the value of this x variable, but we're using the same variable. Automatically the battery will override the 9 because it is the last value being stored in this variable x. I'll run it. So we have battery. Casting. If you want to specify the data type of a variable, this can be done with casting. So we have string. We are converting the tree into a string, and we are also converting well, this is a number already, an integer, which is already a 3 is an integer already, so we're just reconverting it to a integer again. Now we're converting this 3 into a float, which means we're now going to have 3.0. I'm going to show you an example. So right here, if you want to specify the data type of any value that you want to insert into the variable, you can simply use the casting method. The casting, which is this is a function for converting to a string. The second one, int, is a function converting to an integer, and the last one is to convert an integer to a float, and they're all being assigned to x, y, and z. And now we're going to print them out. Let's see how they look. So right here we have a 8, which is a string converted to a string, a 8 which is a number, and an 8 which is a float. That's why we have 8.0. Now I'll show you using the data type function to show us the data type. String, integer, float. Get the type. You can get the data type of a variable with the function type. This is the type. So if you want to know the type of value that's inside x or in any variable, just type, then put in your variable in between the brackets, and it will tell you if it's an integer, if it's a string, or a float. Now if you see a variable and you don't know the data type that's in it, you can use the data type function, which is right here, the data type. So you can see we assigned 3 to H, and D, we assigned John to D. Then we print them out after we put them into the type function. So we have the type function in the print, which when we run it, we'll get the data type. Single or double quotes. Strings variable can be declared either by using single or double quotes. So right here we have double quotes right here, and underneath here we have single quotes. We can either use any one, but we can't use a double quote right here and a single quote at the back here. No, it has to be the same thing. Your opening and your closing has to be the same double quote, or single quote. You can't mix it. So right here we have a variable. We have a variable x and our value Paul, which is a string. Now if you look at the Paul, we have a double quotation mark, and if you look at Matthew, we have a single quotation mark. We can either use a double or single quotation mark on a string, but we can't use a double quotation mark at the beginning and a single quotation mark at the end. So I'll run this. Now I'm going to change the quotation mark for Paul, and I'm starting with a double quotation and ending with a single quotation mark. Then I'll run it. So if you notice here, we have an error, syntax error. Because of the change we made right here, we have a double quotation mark here and a single quotation mark at the end. So if you want to put a string, or you're wrapping a string with a quotation mark, always remember you either use a single quotation mark or a double quotation mark, both to open in the beginning and at the end. Case sensitive. Variable names are case sensitive. So if you use a small letter a as a variable and you assign the value 4 to it and you want to call it back again, you have to use a small letter. If you use a capital letter, you're not going to get that same value. Right here we have a capital letter A and a small letter a, and with the values assigned to it are different. We have an integer here which is 4, we have a string here which is Sally, and now these two are Sally is assigned to small letter capital letter A and 4 is assigned to small letter a. So when we print this out, if we use the capital letter A, we'll get Sally, and if we use a small letter a, we'll get 4. So you have to be sure of the letters you're using. If maybe you're using a variable name called box and the B starts with a capital letter and you're trying to call it back again and you're not using a small letter, you're not going to get it. Variable names are case sensitive. If you look at here, we have a small letter a which we assign a value of 4 to it, and we have a big letter a which we assign a string to it. These two variables, since they're both a's, you think maybe you might get the same value, but you're not going to get the same value because we have a capital letter and a small letter which are totally different. So I'm going to print it out and show you what we're going to get. So for the small letter a, we got our value of 4, and our capital letter A, we have a value of Sally. So you have to remember, anytime you're creating a variable, if you're starting it with a capital letter, anytime you're calling a variable again, you always have to use a capital letter to start it. If you use a small letter, you're creating a totally new variable and your values will not be there. Variable names. A variable can have a short name like X and Y, or more descriptive name like age, like car names, total volume. Rules for Python variables. So a variable name must start with a letter or the underscore character. So it can't start with a number. A variable name can only start with an underscore or a letter. Then a variable name cannot start with a number. You can start a variable with numbers. A variable name can only contain alphanumeric characters and underscores. That's A to Z, 1 to 9, and underscore. Variable names are case sensitive. Age with a small letter and age with a capital letter are totally different variables. So you can see here we have age small letter, age capital letter, starting with a capital letter, and age all round caps, and 3 different variables. These are all 3 different variables. Correct way to write a variable. So these are the correct way to write a variable. So we have my var, join together, no space, we started with a letter, not a number, and we're assigning the value John to it. Or if you don't want to write it like that, you can also use the underscore in between or starting it and the value John. So right here you can see that the underscore starts it with my, or another underscore, then var, or we just have my with a capital letter var, or we can have all capital letters. If you want to have a number to it, it has to come last. You can see my var and number. To create a variable, when you are creating a variable, these are the right way to create one. First, we are want to my var and what the value of John. If you notice, everything is always small letter. If you go underneath, we say my var with an underscore in between the my and the var. Then you can start with an underscore my, then another underscore var. If you want to create a variable, that's another way to write it, to create it. Then we also have my and var. If you look at here, we have the v starting with a capital letter. While we look at the front, we see that the my starts with a small letter and continues that way. And we can also see we have all through capital letters right here, my var. And we also have my var with a number. You can't start a variable with a number. It can end it but not start it. So I'm going to run this so you can see that works, no error. That works, yep, and that works too. So we don't have any error creating a variable this way. The wrong way to write a variable: one is starting with a letter at the front, two is using this sign in between it, no, that won't work, and second is leaving a space. It's leaving a space in between, no, that's not gonna work. Now, the wrong way to create a variable is one, starting with a number, two, using not using an underscore in between the text if you want to separate them. You can't use any other as symbol. The third way is leaving a space in between my and var. It's not allowed, you're gonna get an error. So I'm going to run this so you can see what it says. Error, error, syntax error. Multi-word variable names. Variable names with more than one word can be difficult to read. There are several techniques you can use to make them more readable. Camel case. Each word except the first starts with a capital letter. So we can have it in like this. The first word starts with a my, is a small letter, then the second one starts with a capital letter, then all small. Then the third one, the name starts with a capital letter in all small caps. So John is the value being assigned to this variable. Now, for readability, there are different ways you can write your variable names. You can either use the camel case, which is the first word starts with a small letter, while the first letter in the second word starts with a capital letter. If you look at here, we have our variable in the V in variable starts with a capital letter, while the N in name starts with a capital letter and follows with small letter. So this is called a camel case. So we also have Pascal case. Each word starts with a capital letter. So we have the first word starting with my, starts with a capital letter, and variable starts with a capital letter, with name starting with a capital letter. Then after the capital letters, they all use small letters. This is called Pascal case. Then we also have the Pascal case, which the M starts with a capital letter, because each word in the Pascal case, the first letter of each word starts with a capital letter. If you look at the my here, starts with a capital letter, then a small letter Y, then the V starts with a capital letter, followed with a small letters throughout. Then the name starts with a capital letter, followed with a small letter. Then we have the value John. Then we have a snake case, which each word is separated by an underscore character. So we have here my underscore variable underscore name, and the value being assigned to it John. Then we have our snake case. The snake case is separated by an underscore. Each word is separated by underscore. So we have my separated by an underscore. We have variable separated from an underscore from name. So that's why it's called like a snake case. We have like, then we have our value John. Python variable assign multiple values. Many values to multiple variables. Python allows you to assign values to multiple variables in one line. So this is, we're assigning orange to X, banana to Y, and cherry to Z. Then we're printing them all out using the print function. Note, make sure the number of variables matches the number of values, or else you will get an error. So if we have two variables right here and we have three values right here, we're going to get an error. Then right here, if you look at it, we have orange, banana, and cherry, and we're going to assign these values all at once to these variables X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to run it. So you can see we're able to assign different values, orange, banana, cherry, all the data type of a string, to X, Y, and Z at once. One value to multiple variables, and you can assign the same value to multiple variables in one line. So right now we are assigning orange to X, Y, and Z at the same time, and if we print them out, we're going to get orange, orange, orange 3 times. Right here, I'm going to show you how you can assign one value to multiple variables. First, we have our X variable and Y and Z. Then we're going to print them all out. Let me run it. So you can see we're able to assign orange to all the 3 variables. Unpack a collection. If you have a collection of values in list tuple, Python allows you to extract the values into a variable. So right here we have our values and our variable fruits. Then we bring our variable back here and assign apple, orange to this, and we're going to print them all out. I'll show you an example. Unpacking a collection. So right here we have our values, apple, banana, and cherry. which has been assigned to fruits, the variable. Then we bring our variable fruits right here and assign each value to variable x, y, and z. So we're going to have apple being assigned to x, banana being assigned to y, and z being assigned, cherry being assigned to z. So I'm going to run it. And this is what we got. Output variable. The Python print statement is often used to output variables. To combine both text and variables, Python uses the plus characters. Now I'm going to give you an example of this and how it's being used. You can also use the plus character to add a variable to another variable. Example, we're going to add Python is, then we're going to add y, this is the variable name, the x is also the variable name, and this is our value right here. Then we're going to add it up together. That's what's happening here. We're adding the x and y together. Basically, we're adding the values together and we're assigning it to z. And we're going to print it out and we're going to get Python is awesome. Okay, right here we have our value Python is assigned to x. Then we have our variable y assigned the value awesome is assigned to y. Then right here we're going to add them together, the x and y, using the plus, and then assign it to z. Then we're going to print out the value. So we put in z into the print function. Then I'm going to run it, and we have Python is awesome. Now another way to do it is this. We have our variable and our values awesome, then our print function. Then in the print function we have our string text which we have already written, and we use a double quotation mark. We can also use a single one, we're using a double right here. Then our plus and x is our variable which contains awesome. So once we print this out, we'll get Python is awesome. I'll give an example. Now if you come down here, this is another way how to do it. So right here we have our variable, then our value awesome, and our value awesome is being assigned to x. Then in our print function we have a text which is using a double quotation mark in it. We have Python is, then we have our plus, then our variable x, and in the variable x we have awesome. So once we run this, we'll have Python is awesome. If you try to combine a string and a number, Python will give you an error. So this is our number, which is an integer, and we have our variable which is x, and we have another variable which is y, and this is a string with the name John. So now if we want to add it together, we're going to get an error because they're totally different. This is a string and this is a number. It can't work, so we're going to get an error. So right here we have an integer being assigned to x, and we have y with the value of John, which is a string. Then we have our print function, which we have our x plus y variable, but they're both of different data type. We have a string and we have a number. We can't add them together. If we do, we'll get an error. Let me run it. we have an error. You can't join two different data types together. If you want to join it, you either join a string with a string or an integer with another integer. Or a float with a float. For numbers, the plus character works as a mathematic operation. So you can see the plus works in two ways. You can use it for strings to add it together, to join it together, and you can also use it as in math for calculation. If we add this together, which we have a value of 5 and a variable of x and a variable of y with a value of 10. Right here we're adding them together and we're going to get 15. I'll show you an example how it works. Now if you come down here, we have our integer, which is our value 5 being assigned to x, and 10, our integer, also being assigned to y. Then we're going to use our plus operation right here and add it up together. So if you notice here, we can use the plus as a math operation to add two numbers together, and we can also use it to put two strings together. If you notice here, so once I run this, we'll get 15. So it works in different ways. When you're using a string, it joins the words together, and if you use it with a number, it adds it up together. Global variable. Variables that are created outside of a function, as in all of the example above, are all known as global variables. Global variables can be used by everyone, both inside of a function and outside. So right here we can see this is a variable. It's outside of the function. This is the function right here. So it says create a variable outside of a function and use it inside the function. So this variable has been created outside of this function, and we're going to use it inside it. So we take the x, and we put it right here. You can see the plus right here. Then once we run it, we'll get Python is awesome. And this is for the function. This, in case you're creating a function, this is what you're going to use, def, and this is the function name right here. You always have to end it with a semicolon. So this is how we call a function. We're calling the name right here. This is our call, and now we're printing it out here. I'll give you an example of this. Okay, right here we created a variable outside of the function, and we're going to use it inside of the function. So this is our variable outside of the function right here, and this is our function. Now, and this is how we're going to use it. So we created our function down here, and now we bring in our variable x and put it right here. Then once we run it, we will get Python made easy. You can see, if you create a variable with the same name inside a function, this variable will be local and can only be used inside the function. The global variable with the same name will remain as it was, global, and with the original value. Now, create a variable inside a function with the same name as the global variable. So right here, we're creating a variable. This is the global variable, and this is the internal variable inside the function. So this is inside the function, and this is our print, our function name, and this is our function. So basically, this is inside it, this is inside the function, and this is outside of the function. So I'm showing an example how it works. So right here, if you look at this, we have our global variable, which is the x, awesome, and we have our local variable, which is fantastic. The local variable can only be used in this function, while the global function can also be used with outside the function, and we can also bring it in. So once we run it, we're not going to get any error. Run. Okay, so I'm gonna call it, but I want to bring this out. Cut, space, then paste it out here. Then I'm going to call it, but I want to bring it out. Okay, then run. A little bit back. So you can see we have Python is fantastic, which is the internal, the local variable. Our local variable is what is being run. The global keyword. Normally, when you create a variable inside a function, that variable is local and can only be used inside that variable, inside that function. The global keyword. Normally, when you create a variable inside a function, that variable is local and can only be used inside that function. To create a global variable inside a function, you can use the global keyword. So right, yeah. So it says normally when you create a variable inside a function, that variable is local and can only be used inside that function. So if we go back to our example right here, we can see this is variable right here, it's a local variable which can only be used inside this function, and this is a global variable which can be used. Okay, so right here we have our keyword global with the variable right here x, and the value is fantastic. So I'm going to run it right now. I'm not going to get an error. It's run, but then I'm going to bring out this, cut it, then space, paste, then bring it out, then run. Indentation errors. I'm going to say Yeah, so we have it now. Python is fantastic. Okay, now so it says to create a global variable inside a function, you can use the global keyword. So you can use this keyword to create a global variable which is a local, but once you use this it becomes a global variable. Also, use the global keyword if you want to change a global variable inside a function. If you use the global keyword, the variable belongs to the global scope. So as we can see here, this is a local variable, but since we're now using this global, then the name of the variable, which is x, it becomes a global variable which can be used by other functions. To change the value of a global variable inside a function refers to the variable by using the global keyword.